You're listening to Swift News, your daily news briefing in just 10 minutes. This is episode 60, and it's July 2025. Let's get into today's stories. Welcome to the deep dive. We often just glance at headlines. Today, though, we're grabbing those quick updates from around the globe and really digging in. Think of it like getting a full news briefing. And our job is to pull out the key bits, see how they connect, and figure out what they actually mean for you. Okay, let's get started.
Yeah, it's so easy to feel, swamped by the sheer amount of news, isn't it? But if we look closer at these specific headlines, you start to see patterns, you understand the links between things that seem separate, and grasp the bigger picture. It's not just what's happening, but why it matters.
Right. Let's start with geopolitics. There's a major diplomatic tour happening. PM Modi of India is on a five-nation trip starting in Japan, aiming to boost trade and security links. So the question is, can a trip like this genuinely lift India's global standing? Or is it more symbolic?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Because, these tours involve handshakes, photos, but real influence comes from actual results, strategic shifts. Is India using this to lock down, say, critical mineral deals, or maybe forge new tech partnerships that change supply chains?
Okay. So concrete outcomes, not just visits.
Exactly. That's where you move from symbolism to actual strategic positioning. And you have to see it in context, too, like BRICS condemning that Pahalgam terror attack that shows this global push for collective security. It makes individual diplomatic efforts, like Modi's tour, part of a larger picture.
Interconnected.
Definitely. And then you have the Gaza ceasefire, 72 hours holding for now. Egypt mediating aid is fragile, yes, but it shows diplomacy, even under pressure, can make a difference. Deliver vital aid, maybe prevent things from getting worse.
Oh, shifting over to the U.S. now. A big piece of legislation just passed the Senate, a domestic policy bill from former President Trump, and it's predicted to add, get this, $3 trillion to the national debt. Yeah. And that's raising concerns about potential cuts to welfare programs later on. So what does $3 trillion added debt really mean for the economy and, for you listening?
Well, $3 trillion is a massive number. It's roughly the size of a major country's entire annual economy. And the big question is how decisions like this, even domestic ones, send ripples globally. Higher national debt often means potentially higher interest rates down the road.
Meaning
things like mortgages, car loans, credit cards. They could all get more expensive for you.
Yeah.
And the welfare cut concerns. That's about how the government might try to manage that debt later, possibly affecting social safety nets people rely on.
Right. Okay. And sticking with economics, but moving to India, their GST revenue, goods and services tax, dropped in June. It's at 1.85 lakh crore. That's a 4-month low, down 8.2% from May. First, can you quickly break down lakh crore for maybe our international listeners?
Sure. So a lakh is 100,000 and a crore is 10 million. So 1.85 lakh crore is 1.85 trillion rupees, roughly 22 billion US dollars. It's a significant amount.
And what does that drop signal? Could it slow down India's growth?
It certainly could. A dip like that suggests maybe less consumer spending, slower business activity. It's a key indicator of economic health and impacts government funds. But here's where it gets interesting and maybe a bit confusing.
What?
Well, while GST dropped, India's stock market, the Sensex, actually climbed 300 points. Seems markets reacted positively to easing tensions in the Middle East.
So conflicting signals.
Exactly. And at the same time, crude oil prices went up because U.S. stockpiles fell. Shows underlying demand pressure. So for you, the listener, you might see stocks go up, which feels good, but then face higher costs, like at the gas pump.
Like that new fuel surcharge on domestic flights in India starting July 5th, an extra 10?
Precisely. That's a direct impact. Then you see corporate moves like Lupin launching Lupin Life, a consumer healthcare arm. That's them aiming straight for the over-the-counter market, maybe bringing new health products directly to you.
And global.
Australia's retail sales look steady, maybe paving the way for an interest rate cut there, 25 basis points, 0.25%. That's meant to make borrowing cheaper, boost spending, shows how interconnected all these economic pieces are.
Okay, let's switch gears. From macroeconomics to some really cool micro-level stuff, tech breakthroughs. We've got data coming back from Shubhanshu Shukla's ISS experiments on the Axiom 4 mission, sparking new space research in India. What kind of possibilities does this open up?
Oh, huge possibilities. This kind of data from microgravity helps us understand everything from how materials behave to how the human body changes in space. It's not just abstract science. It could be key for, say, long trips to Mars or even developing new medicines back here on Earth.
Wow, and practical applications right now.
Absolutely. Look at IRCTC in India, their new Aadhaar-based system for booking Tatkal, those urgent train tickets. Linking it to the national ID system makes it way harder for scalpers. That's a direct win for fairness for regular travelers.
That makes sense.
And then there's this U.S. startup using AI for wildfire detection in California, spotting fires way earlier than before. That's technology directly tackling a huge environmental crisis, saving forests, potentially saving lives.
Incredible stuff. And looking forward, the race for connectivity Japan hitting 150 GBPs in 6G trials, aiming for 2030.
Yeah, 150 gigabits per second, that's blazing fast. It lays the groundwork for, well, a future we can barely imagine yet. Hyper-connected everything.
And China's new EV battery tech, cutting charge times. Is that the breakthrough needed for mass adoption?
It could be a massive piece of the puzzle. Charging time is, a major hurdle for EVs. If you can get significant range in, say, 10, 15 minutes, that changes everything for drivers, makes EVs way more practical, less anxiety about running out of juice.
So not just niche, but potentially game-changing.
Definitely. These aren't just lab experiments. They're building blocks for how we'll live and move around soon.
Okay, let's jump from tech to sports. Some amazing performances. India's Smriti Mandhana is now number 3 in T20I rankings, scored a century against England, still holds the top spot in ODIs. That's incredibly consistent.
It really is. That kind of consistency is leadership. It builds confidence in the whole team, especially heading into big tournaments. Pure power, too. Did you see Giovanni Impecci Pericard broke the Wimbledon serve speed record? 153 miles per hour.
Whoa.
Yeah. And team sports are buzzing, too. Kenya's men's volleyball qualified for the African Championships. Brazil's women's soccer team won 3-1, gearing up for World Cup qualifiers. Plus, a new Indian mixed doubles pair in the Australian Open qualifiers. Always exciting to see new talent emerge.
Absolutely. And beyond sports, culture is making waves globally. Houseful of 5 in India, nearing 200 crore, massive numbers.
Shows star power still draws big crowds.
And Nigeria's Nollywood Festival in New York drew 80,000 people. That's huge reach.
It really is. Yeah. Nollywood's global influence is undeniable now. And you see it elsewhere, too. That London exhibit on indigenous art getting praise. Japan's anime streaming hitting $4 billion in revenue. Culture crossing borders like never before.
It's amazing. But not all news is good news, especially on the environmental front.
No, unfortunately. The cloudburst toll in Uttarkashi rose to 18, more heavy rain expected. And in Kerala, monsoon floods have displaced 150,000 people. Red alerts out. It's a stark reminder of, well, climate impacts happening right now. Devastating for those communities.
Truly is. But amidst that, there are some positive environmental stories, too.
Yes, definitely signs of progress. Canada's expanding solar farms now power 1.2 million homes, cutting emissions significantly. That's real movement. And Brazil's reforestation efforts in the Amazon, 8 million trees planted just this year. Vital work.
That's encouraging. Okay, finally, let's focus on some individual human impact stories. These are always inspiring.
They really are. You hear about a Kenyan scientist developing a solar water purifier, helping 7,000 rural homes get clean water. An Indian teacher's coding academy, empowering 6,000 students in Odisha. A Brazilian farmer's sustainable coffee co-op lifting incomes for 5,000 families. A U.S. engineer designing flood-resistant infrastructure, protecting 4,000 coastal residents.
Just amazing examples of ingenuity making a direct difference.
Exactly. It reminds you that while headlines often focus on the big picture, these individual and community efforts are powerful forces for good. It makes you think, how do these grassroots actions work with the larger policies and tech solutions? Sometimes they fill gaps the big systems miss.
That's a great point. So we've covered a lot today. Global politics, economic ups and downs, tech leaps, cultural moments, environmental realities, and these really powerful human stories. It really shows how much more you see when you look beyond just the headlines, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Seeing the connections, the threads between all these different events gives you a much richer, more, complete understanding of the world. You see the cause and effect more clearly.
So the final thought for you listening today, think about this balance we've seen between the huge global forces, the economic numbers, the big policies, and these very local, very human-driven innovations and acts of resilience. How might that interplay shape our future, especially when we face these massive shared challenges? Something to chew on as you go about your day. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll dive in again next time.